51. That's a number of years it's been since the New York Jets won Super Bowl III. Led by Hall of Famer Joe Namath and his infamous guarantee, the Jets won the biggest upset in Super Bowl history when they beat the overwhelming favorite Baltimore Colts. It was the first time in history that an AFL team had beaten an 34. That's a number of quarterbacks that have started a game since Joe Namath left New York in 1976. And after Broadway Joe packed his bags for Los Angeles, the Jets haven't had a quarterback fill his shoes since. This has resulted in a long rotating cast of prospects and misfits into what is the most important position in the game. 0. That's the number of times the Jets and their quarterbacks have made it back to the big game since 1969. It's also coincidentally the number of times that I haven't gone a full season of watching New York play without throwing up at least once. In recent history, there have been solid gunslingers who made the Jets a respectable team. But for every good, established pro, there is an unrefined and disappointing prospect. There is no rhyme or reason to the Jets and their quarterback history. It's just one sad ending after another. All in all, even the best of the bunch have failed to lead the Jets back to the promised land. Some have gotten oh so close, while others were simply a flash in the pan. So after 34 swings and misses at trying to find the rightful successor to Namath, are the Jets officially cursed at the QB position? Only time will tell, but before we look into the future, we must commiserate on the past. Real quick, before I start, if you're a fellow Jets fan like myself, this video may hurt to watch, so viewer discretion is advised. It is a necessary pain to get through, because you have to fully rip off the band-aid to see the scar in its entirety. Yes, looking back on how much we suck as a franchise isn't the most pleasant experience, but it will make it even sweeter if the Jets ever do win it all. The journey began all the way back in the 1976 NFL Draft. With an old Namath on his way out to LA, the Jets needed to find their QB replacement. They thought they found it when they took Richard Todd with the 6th overall pick. The Alabama quarterback went to the same alma mater as Joe, so the Jets thought, hey, they went to the same school, so he has to be just as good. Because every Bill Belichick assistant turns out to be the next Bill Belichick. Great thinking. Todd lasted 7 seasons as a starter, going 42, 51, and 1. He made the conference championship game in '82, which was the Jets' first appearance in over a decade. And in a 2-year stretch from '81 to '82, Todd put up a solid 16-8-1 record with 39 touchdowns to 21 interceptions and a QBR of 83.7. He wasn't a bad QB by any means, but he just wasn't good enough to get the job done. Not terrible, but not great. Anyways, it was just time to move on. In 1984, New York drafted UC Davis quarterback Ken O'Brien with the 24th pick. The highly touted prospect was a New York native, and he was one of 6 QBs who were expected to be drafted high in the '84 draft. Seems like a reasonable fit, right? Ken ended up being a solid player in his day, going 50, 55, and 1 in 9 seasons, making the playoffs 3 times, along with 2 Pro Bowls. He even led the NFL in passer rating in 1985. Not too bad for the 24th overall pick. The only problem was that the Jets didn't end up with the best QB of that 6-man lot. 3 picks later, with the 27th pick, the Miami Dolphins took future record-breaking quarterback Dan Marino. Of course they did. He torched New York for 16 seasons and made sure they regretted the day they passed up on him. It's simply something only the Jets can do in messing up the 24th overall pick. It's not even like it was a top 5 pick. Truly incredible botch by the Jets. Oh well, maybe 3rd time's a charm. The band had to march on in '93 when O'Brien moved to the Eagles. The Jets looked to free agency instead of the draft to replace him. They got a good replacement there in Boomer Esiason. The former league MVP had established himself as one of the best quarterbacks, as he led Cincinnati to a Super Bowl loss against the vaunted 49ers in his MVP season in '88. Not too far removed from his peak playing days, Boomer was more than serviceable in his first 2 years with the team. Esiason made the Pro Bowl in his first year in New York, and it looked like he would be the man to carry this franchise for the foreseeable future. That was looking like the case until 1995, when the Jets hired the one coach who might have been worse than he who shall not be named, Rich Kotite. That name alone can send shivers down a Jets fan's spine. The media results for Richie were absolutely terrible. New York went 3-13 in 95, and Boomer went 15-27 overall as a starter before he suffered a terrible concussion that seriously threatened to end his NFL career. With Boomer not in an ideal playing condition, it was time yet again to move on and try to find that franchise quarterback. The Jets had to wait a few years though to find a sustainable QB, and the results showed harshly. In Kotite's second and final year with the team, the Jets went a pathetic 1-15 with an amalgamation of Frank Reich, Neil O'Donnell, and Glenn Foley leading the way. O'Donnell was coming off a Super Bowl appearance with the Steelers the year before, one in which he put up one of the worst performances in the history of the game. So of course the Jets would sign him to a big money free agency deal. Makes total sense. Neil would go 0-6 in his first year with the team before he suffered a season-ending shoulder injury. However, under new head coach Bill Parcells, New York was able to turn the ship around considerably the next season, going 9-7 with O'Donnell starting 14 games. This season couldn't save him though, as Neil ended up falling out of favor with Parcells, and Bill ended up waiving O'Donnell after the next season ended. On a positive note, the team was heading in the right direction for the first time in a few years. They just needed some positional stability at the QB spot. To find that stability, the Jets again went for a veteran QB, as well as another hometown kid, with former Miami Heisman Trophy winner, Vinnie Testaverti. Vinnie was coming off a Pro Bowl season with the Ravens in '96, in which he threw for over 4,000 yards and 33 touchdowns. He had a rocket of an arm, but also had a penchant for turning the ball over. This seems like a common theme for Jets quarterbacks, even all the way back to Namath, and it would continue to be a trend well into the present. Nonetheless, Testaverti was an immediate success under Parcells. In 13 games in his first season, he went 12-1 and flourished, throwing 29 scores to 7 picks and completing over 61% of his throws for a QBR of 101.6. It was arguably the single best season for a quarterback in franchise history. Vinnie's hot streak led the Jets all the way back to the AFC Championship game for the first time since 1982. It was a miraculous turnaround from 2 seasons ago, but it ended in heartbreak as New York lost to the Denver Broncos and all-time great QB, John Elway. Regardless, it felt like Gotham had finally found their guy. Although an Achilles injury ended Vinnie's season a game into 1999, he returned for 2 more memorable years. It was quite the whirlwind for the franchise to start the new millennium. Parcells retired, Belichick coached for a single day, Vinnie beat those Marino-led Dolphins in the Monday Night Miracle, and then he returned New York to the postseason in 2001. After his Achilles tear though, he was never the same. The old gunslinger was nearing his end, and Gangrene decided to pull the plug. He ended his Jets career as a quarterback with the best win percentage, winning 57% of his games. It's pretty indicative of New York's historical QB struggles. Despite this, the Jets decided to move on, this time replacing the QB slot internally. After coming in and out of the starting spot for an injured Testaverti, including leading the team to a win in the 2002 wildcard game, Chad Pennington finally controlled the reins in 2004. The 2000 first-round draftee signed a hefty 7-year, $64 million contract before the season, and the Jets immediately went back to the playoffs that year. Chad was a pretty accurate passer over his tenure as quarterback, completing 66 of his throws for a career passer rating of 89. He was the most precise QB in Jets history, which translated to 3 postseason appearances in 6 years of being a starter, for a total record of 32-29. Yet that nasty injury bug just kept haunting New York. Pennington started 16 games only once his entire time as a Jet, so relying on a major question mark like that was always going to be a risky bet. So once more, the Jets flip-flopped between drafting a top QB prospect to now signing a wily vet. This time though, they really went all out in that department. At the end of the 2007 season, the Jets let Chad Pennington go to the rival Dolphins in order to sign recently unretired Wrangler ambassador Brett Favre. One of the best QBs of all time, Favre was in his twilight years but still had a few years left to offer. He checked all the boxes for a typical Jets quarterback. Veteran signing? Check. Gunslinger mentality? Check. Throw a lot of picks? Check. Got into a media scandal? Triple check. Brett gave New York the full gambit in his first and only year as quarterback for the team. Favre got the Jets out to a blazing start in 08, with an 8-3 record through Week 12. However, this is where the QB curse really started to pick up steam again. After injuring his arm in Week 11, Favre played the rest of the year hurt, and New York lost 4 of their last 5 games to end the season 9-7 and miss the playoffs. Brett did not disclose the injury to the team, naturally, and the Jets were fined $125,000 and lost him to the Vikings in free agency. Just great. Meanwhile, Pennington led the 08 Dolphins to an 11-5 record, a postseason berth, and won Comeback Play of the Year. Because of course. Now with Favre gone, the search had to commence once more. New York again looked to the draft for help. But tired of not getting a top 5 pick for a quarterback, the Jets traded up from 17 to 5 to nab USC quarterback Mark Sanchez. It was the first pick of the Rex Ryan era, and the two were tasked with eventually leading the Jets back to glory. Mark was given the nickname the Sanchez. Although Sanchez threw a ton of interceptions, he was able to game manage just enough to let the team win a majority of their games. With a loaded defense and enough offensive weapons to win any game, New York found itself right in the thick of the Super Bowl conversation. But as you know by now, the Jets can never have nights.
Talk to Tom Moore, then at Indianapolis, the offensive coordinator.
This is the death of a franchise.
Busted play here, and then Sanchez gets hit. The ball is loose, and it's alive.
There couldn't be a more perfect encapsulation of the Jets as a franchise. With Sanchez running straight into his own lineman's posterior, New York became the biggest laughingstock in the league. No one play is more apropos of the Jets' inability to find the right QB than this one. To be honest, it's the most apt meme in the history of memeage. By the end of the season, Sanchez lost his starting job to NFL legend Greg McElroy, with fellow NFL legend Tim Tebow watching from the sidelines. The pit of despair just kept descending deeper and deeper for New York, with no bottom or end in sight. So, the Jets tried something different. To buck the trend of drafting a first-round QB, New York looked past the 32nd pick in the draft to find their man. The Jets hoped they found a steal in the second round of 2013, when they selected former WVU standout Geno Smith. But Geno was just more of the same. He completed the Sanchez special in his rookie year, throwing for 12 scores to 21 picks. It just felt like the Jets were stuck in a rut since Favre dined and dashed his way out of NYC. There was no hope to be found anywhere. At least this era was rightfully short. Geno went 12-28 as a Jets starter. Enough said. So after failing once again to find their franchise guy in the draft, New York went back to their old reliable, signing old veteran QBs. In 2015, they signed the king of wandering QBs, the bearded one himself, Ryan Fitzpatrick. To everyone's shock, Fitzmagic shined in his first year with the Jets. He threw a career-high 3,905 yards and 31 touchdowns, and had New York with a 10-5 record heading into Week 17. The only thing stopping the Jets from marching back into the playoffs for the first time since 2010 were the Buffalo Bills, coached by none other than Rex freaking Ryan. You can guess how that one turned out for the Jets. Just like, there's no freaking way that didn't, oh my, ugh. The Fitzmagic turned into Fitz tragedy in 2016, as the cyclical nature of the league's best dresser came to its natural end. The journeyman was let go to walk the long, cold NFL streets once more. To replace Ryan, the Jets got an even older journeyman QB in Josh McCown. At this point, it felt like they weren't even trying anymore. The McCown trial went exactly how you thought it would. Another New York season ending in numbing misery. To compensate for their terrible season in 2017, the Jets again traded their first-round pick to move up in the draft. This time it was from 6 to 3, and they took another USC quarterback, Sam Darnold. It seems that New York never learns from their mistakes. Yes, they got a young, talented, potential franchise guy, but they didn't even bother to help him out with any offensive line, wide receivers, or running backs. It was a very tough first year for Darnold and company, as they stumbled to a 4-12 record. The Jets made matters even worse the following year when they decided to hire you-know-who. If you wish to not hear his name, mute now, because I will say it. Adam Gase. Any hope for progress for Sam and the team was immediately squashed with this horrendous and a putrid 2-14 in 2020. Between getting mono and seeing ghosts, Darnold embodied the Jets' QB curse on overdrive, and he was just the latest instance of promise turning into dust. After missing the playoffs for the 10th straight year, New York couldn't even end up with the first pick as consolation, where they would have had the rights to the best QB prospect since Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence. Instead, they won 2 will turn into an all-pro quarterback one day. It's simply the only possible outcome. So after 34 QBs have come and gone, have New York finally found the chosen one in Wilson? Hopefully, because since winning Super Bowl III, the Jets have been to the AFC Championship 4 times, but never further. They also haven't had a single signal caller lead the team for 10 or more years, which is usually the criteria needed to be considered a franchise quarterback. It seems like this team is cursed with either sucking for prolonged periods of time, or being oh so close to glory. This has been reflected in the rotating carousel of QBs that have manned the front line since Namath took up his finger after shocking the world. So is Zach going to be the one to do it? Or will there be a 36 crack at this thing in a few years? If you're going by the history books, then certainly the Jets will be picking another QB in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. Either that or they'll sign a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers out of retirement for one season of injury-plagued football. In the end, the New York Jets are a true factory of sadness when it comes to producing a franchise quarterback. Maybe Namath did sell his soul for a Super Bowl, as some think, and we can't return back to the Super Bowl until his soul is free. Maybe gangrene is just like their namesake, an infectious disease that can only be stopped by amputation. Maybe it's time I amputated myself from watching this cursed team. Or maybe I'll be right there watching all the misery unfold again in week 1. Who am I kidding? It's not maybe, it's definitely. Why do I do this to myself?